Alright, it's finally time to end my suffering, and what better deck to do it against than Maelstrom, the deck that you all got, everyone on my channel seems to love, and that I have not yet updated since that promo that we just discarded for Ride deck came out. Anyways, welcome to part 3 of 3 of my everlasting torment of playing a Lilfa deck. So anyways, I guess we can get into the match. Pretty basic things going on here. Swing pass, there's nothing to do. Unfortunately, I do have the privilege, I guess, of going second, which is absolutely terrible, which means that like I'm going to be at grade 2 and my opponent's going to be multi-attacking. Not to mention the fact that this is probably the worst matchup I could possibly have, considering that Lilfa is basically a Bastion deck, and we have 0 shield value. So any early game rush is going to, the only way I'm getting out of this is with the defensive trigger. Yagos is going to be swinging first, hitting into a critical trigger, swinging for 20, which I cannot guard, but thankfully I do hit a heal trigger. So I'm going to be ending this first turn at 2, which would be great, but actually that's not great. There's no situation where that's great. At least I have the floor. The floor's skill is going to actually call me out that grade 1, which unfortunately is not going to be able to hit. We're just going to swing at the rear guard, Tidal Assault, hitting into a critical trigger, giving all the effects to the rear guard. Deciding whether I want to swing and give my opponent the extra 2 damage. In all honesty, it's probably like, I probably should have just swung both at Van, because like honestly, Maelstrom doesn't really need that much CB on its first grade 2 turn, or first grade 2, its first grade 3 turn. And of course I do make a little bit of a misplay here. I probably should not have called out that floor, since floor is kind of, you know, the backbone of this entire deck. And Maelstrom is a deck that I really should know at this point has the ability to retire a lot of units. I was going to say spot removal, which is technically still accurate. Anyways, running into the Maelstrom, we're going to see a typical inlet coming out of the deck. We did search out the Judgment of the Storm, which, you know, it doesn't really matter that I killed the Tidal Assault last turn. We can just revive it there. But I still think it's a fine play, because sometimes you don't want to use your Judgment of the Storm right away, and then sometimes just using it on Tidal Assault is not always the best. But going first, it's pretty good, since this Tidal Assault can swing at the Vanguard twice. Assuming we don't hit into a defensive trigger here, we will be able to hit with all 3 attacks. So I'm just going to be taking the first attack and hitting into Maelstrom's worst nightmare, which is going to be that defensive trigger. So none of the attacks are going to be hitting. The Vanguard is going to be retiring the floor, and this is going to be a 1 to pass. I decide that I kind of need all the advantage that I need, and I'm thinking I might put this to a 1 to pass, but honestly it's not worth it, so I'm going to be OT to pass. Drive check 1, drive check 2. Turns out to be the right play, because we did see a heal trigger there, putting the inlet back into the soul and drawing the 1 card. So Maelstrom already set up, doing all of its Maelstrom things, as I am ready to do my Lilfa things, discarding, riding into the grade 3 Lilfa, calling out the grade 3 triple rare, soul blasting 2 to draw a card, and thankfully drawing into another floor. So all is well with the world. Calling out a heal trigger, which would have been definitely nice to hit off the top, but unfortunately this is Lilfa and we cannot have nice things. So calling out the grade 3 cycle card, as well as the grade 2, I forget what her name is. She's going to soul charge a draw trigger, another card I would have loved to hit on a trigger, but we don't really have a lot to do here, using the Lilfa skill, giving all of those units in the back row boost, swinging, boosting the heal trigger into a 20k. So 10k guard, not very difficult to guard, but we are taking. We do need the CB, swinging at the Vanguard for -19, choosing to not guard it, getting a critical trigger, critical to the Vanguard, and then the extra power to the cycle card, counterblasting 1, adding the floor and the heal trigger back into my hand, and then calling out, since we didn't actually see any defensive, calling out another one of the triple rare, and since it was called from hand, it does get another 5k, so swings for a nice 18, which is going to be calling for yet another 10k guard when you're hitting that 15, swinging a 31 at this other column, which can be met by a front trigger, using a skill to bounce back the grade 3 triple rare back to my hand, so that even if my board gets cleared, I'll at least have something to call off of Lilfa's skill. And I do have that floor that I added back to my hand, so depending on how bad my board ends up after this turn, I should still be able to manage to create a board and actually do things on my next turn. So Maelstrom, going to be doing Maelstrom things, pitching the card. I believe that was a Tidal Assault to call out the Inlet Pulse Dragon, and then using the Judgment of the Storm, a second copy, to actually call back out that Tidal Assault that we ditched, and then giving 5k to the other one. So a little bit of a weird combo, but you know, it's gonna work. I'm gonna be swinging the Tidal Assault. I'm gonna be taking the first 2 attacks, hoping for a defensive, although in this situation it doesn't really matter as much because everything will be still hitting over a defensive. But at this point I kind of have to guard everything now. I believe I am at 4 at the moment, so swinging the Tidal Assault, pushing up the other Tidal Assault. 4th attack is going to be that Maelstrom, swinging for a very clean 28 thanks to the skill of the Tidal Assault that we used last, retiring my Cycle card and drawing the card. So I'm thinking I do kind of have to prevent this attack, so I'm just going to be PGing it, discarding that grade 3. Twin Drive is not going to be seeing anything. Elementaria, swinging the 23k Inlet Pulse, and then this 20k Tidal Assault is going to have to be blocked by an OT, even though that was a 10k guard, because that was the last card that had any shield value in my hand, outside of this floor, which would have been enough. Thankfully, the floor actually gets me something. Unfortunately, soul charging a Persona Ride, which I really would have preferred to top deck, but once again, we can't have nice things. So at least that's a 15k booster. Going to be calling out another one of the grade 3, using that soul that I got to Soul Blast 1 and give all my things boost. And it was actually really good that I called that grade 3, otherwise I would not have been able to do anything. But it doesn't really matter because this matchup is very, very lost. I have 1 card left in hand, and I believe I'm at 5 at this time. Swinging the 19, the 23, the 19. 26 is actually still just an easy card to guard. I'm sorry, I said 23, but guarding for, I believe that's OT to pass. Hitting into a critical trigger, giving all the effects to my other column, counterblasting 1, adding the floor, the grade 3, and then just calling back out the grade 3. If this were a Persona Ride, this would actually hit for 28, which would have been a nice number. And unfortunately, it is not, so it is just going to be a 15, which is going to hit into a heal trigger. But thankfully, my other column will still hit, but Maelstrom has really been doing its thing, and we have way too much hand to actually not live this, so we're just going to PG that instead of committing some more cards to hand. So technically, we did almost get there against Maelstrom. Maybe if we had been able to Persona Ride, we could have closed it out. The opponent was at 4 damage, so getting that last 2 might have been possible, but we did see a defensive, so who knows. But anyways, this is kind of the end for me. I have 3 cards in hand, 115k shield, and my opponent has set up, I would say 7 attacks, but we're short 1 CB, so this is only going to be the 6 attacks, which is, you know, great against me, who has 3 cards in hand. So there's no way I'm going to survive this, no OT, so I'm just going to take it and let myself die. So thankfully, my suffering with Lilfa is finally over. I hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to do all those YouTube things, like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.